All right, let's talk about something that's absolutely critical when you're building with AI, but so many of us skip it: evaluation. Yeah, I know. You've built this incredible RAG pipeline. It feels like magic. But if you're not properly evaluating it, you're basically flying blind. You have no real idea if it's giving good answers or just making stuff up. So how do you know if what you built is actually any good? Let's get into it. Okay, full disclosure, I don't think this is a real statistic from a formal study, but the sentiment behind it, it's 100% true. An incredible number of developers put all this blood, sweat, and tears into building these amazing systems, and then they just don't test them properly. And that's a massive problem because, again, you have no idea what's really happening under the hood. So that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? What does a great evaluation pipeline even look like? It's not just about running a few one-off tests. No, it's about building a solid, repeatable system that proves your app is accurate, relevant, and trustworthy. First things first, you can't evaluate anything if you don't have something to measure against. You need a benchmark. And in our world, that benchmark is your evaluation dataset. The quality of your entire evaluation, I mean, the whole thing, it completely depends on how good this dataset is. When it comes to building a killer dataset, it really just boils down to these two pillars. You need someone who knows the subject matter inside and out, and you need a wide variety of questions and answers that actually reflect what the real world is going to throw at your app. So job number one is finding your domain expert. This person is your guide, your guru. They're the one who deeply, truly understands the data. They know what kinds of questions real users are going to ask, and, this is super important, they know all the keywords and the specific jargon of that field. This is the person who's going to help you create a test that actually matters. Now, once you have your expert, how do you generate the data set? Well, you don't just start writing a bunch of random questions. You start with personas. You basically have to get into character. You create these fictional users so you can make sure your questions are coming from all sorts of different viewpoints and knowledge levels. And this just shows you the kind of variety you should be aiming for. You know, an industry analyst is going to ask way different questions than a college student, right? A super technical person is going to try and break it in a totally different way than a non-technical person. By creating questions for each of these personas, you start to build a really rich, truly diverse data set. But it's not just about who is asking the questions. You also have to think about how they're asking, and that is where scenarios come in. Think of these as different situations you're designing specifically to stress test your pipeline. You want to see how it handles things that aren't just simple, easy questions. And this right here is what separates a basic evaluation from a really great one. Sure, you need to test if your system can answer a question when the info is right there in the context. That's table stakes. But what about when the answer isn't in the context? Can it figure that out? Or what if it has to piece together info from two different documents to answer one question? Testing these scenarios is how you really find out what your system is made of. Okay, so you've put in the work. You've built this beautiful, complex, diverse data set. What's next? Well, now you actually have to run the evaluation. And there are three main ways you can judge how your model is doing. This is pretty much your evaluation toolkit. You can use another powerful AI to be the judge, you can fall back on some classic machine learning metrics, or you can use a really structured rubric-based system. Let's break down what each of these means. The LLM as a judge approach has gotten super popular lately, and the idea is actually pretty simple. You use a powerful large language model, you give it a really clear set of instructions, and then you ask it to grade the answers from your own application. It's kind of like hiring an AI to grade your AI's homework. And the LLM judge isn't just giving you a vague thumbs up or thumbs down. Oh no, it's a tough grader. It's looking at very specific, very important criteria, like was the context it pulled up even relevant to the question? Was the final answer it gave relevant? And maybe the most important one, was the answer actually faithful to the source material, or did it just start hallucinating and making things up? These are the absolute pillars of a good RAG response. Now, here's a quick but really important distinction. The rubrics-based approach also uses an LLM, but the way it scores is different. For a simple relevance check, a binary score, a simple true or false, is usually the best way to go. It's either relevant or it isn't, you know? But for something more nuanced, like grading a resume for a job, you'd want a ranged score, like 0 to 25, based on a really detailed rubric. And finally, there's the metrics-based approach. If you come from a classic machine learning background, this is going to feel very familiar. Here, we're talking about good old precision and recall. You're basically just using these metrics to measure how good your retrieval step is. For every single question, are you pulling back the right pieces of information? So you built the dataset, you ran the judgments, you're done, right? Time to celebrate? Not quite. The final, and I would argue the most important piece of this whole puzzle, is understanding that evaluation isn't a one-time thing. It's a never-ending cycle. This is the loop you want to be living in. You ship your app, you watch how real people are using it, you monitor everything. You use that data to critique your own evaluation system, and then you regenerate your dataset to make it even harder and even better. And then you do it all over again. And guess who's back? Our friend, the domain expert. Remember how the LLM judge gives you a justification for its score? Well, someone has to check the checker. The domain expert's job is to look at those AI-generated justifications and ask, does this reasoning even make sense? If it doesn't, that's your signal that you need to go back and tweak your prompts, or maybe even your whole dataset. This is that essential human-in-the-loop step you just can't skip. Look, we've seen that a strong evaluation pipeline isn't just a nice-to-have. It's the absolute foundation of any reliable AI application. It is the difference between shipping a product that you hope is good and one that you know is good. So that brings us to the final question you should be asking yourself. Now that you've got the blueprint, how are you going to automate it? How will you make this whole process run by itself so your application keeps getting better and better every single day?